The Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power showrunners Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne have an explanation as to why they are including the wizards or Istari in their show that is set in the Second Age, despite j.r.r. Tolkien making it abundantly clear that the wizards or the Istari did not appear until the Third Age. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. Also like to ask if you please hit that like button. Let's beat the YouTube algorithm, get more people watching this video. I wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com, and Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne did an interview with Collider after Collider did a set visit for the Rings of Power Season 2. And they were asked about whether the stranger telling Nori, when in doubt, Eleanor Brandyfoot, always follow your nose, was a confirmation that the character was Gandalf, given that is a paraphrase of what Gandalf says in Peter Jackson's adaptation of The Fellowship of the Ring. If you want to listen to both versions, you can in this YouTube video here. I will have the link to this article in the description below so you can listen to that. But this is what Payne said. We try to make it delightful in that there are several possibilities of what that can end up meaning. Could that mean that the stranger is Gandalf and that he says that, then he says it later on? It could definitely mean that. Could it also mean that the stranger is Saruman and you realize that later on Saruman said that to Gandalf and then Gandalf said it? You know what I mean? There are always ways you can sort of like pinball it. There could be delightful paths that could come out of either eventuality. So we like to keep those doors open. It's fun to engage with the story and think of the possibility. So basically a non-answer there on whether or not the stranger here, played by, I think the guy's name is Daniel Wayman. Yeah, Daniel Wayman. This guy here, they're not saying whether he is Gandalf or not. But this is the big point of the interview right here. They give an explanation as to why they chose to include this character that they're calling the stranger in the show, despite Tolkien making it very clear that the wizards did not arrive until the Third Age. This is what Tolkien wrote in Appendix B of The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. He wrote this: when maybe 1,000 years had passed and the first shadow had fallen on Greenwood the Great, the Istari or wizards appeared in Middle-earth. I would be remiss. I also want to point out here that this section in Appendix B is literally labeled Third Age. So this is happening in the Third Age when he is writing this. So the Istari or wizards appeared in Middle-earth in the Third Age. This is taking place in the Third Age. It was afterwards said they came out of the far west and were messengers sent to contest the power of Sauron and to unite all those who had the will to resist him. But they were forbidden to match his power with power or to seek to dominate elves or men by force and fear. The two highest of this order, or whom it is said there were 5, were called by the Eldar Curanir, the man of skill, and Mithrandir, the Grey Pilgrim, but by men in the north, Saruman and Gandalf. Curanir journeyed into the east, but dwelt at last in Isengard. Mithrandir was closest in friendship with the Eldar, and wandered mostly in the west and never made for himself a lasting abode. So very clear there that Tolkien says that wizards, the Istari, did not arrive in Middle-earth until the Third Age. Despite this, we have this character, the stranger, who is an Istari and has somehow arrived during the Second Age. Well, this is how Patrick McKay justified this inclusion, despite it being contradictory to what Tolkien wrote, to the legendarium, to the lore of the Lord of the Rings. We always felt from the very beginning that you need all the ingredients. We always talked about a Thanksgiving meal. You want the turkey, you want the cranberry sauce, you want the stuffing. We felt like a Lord of the Rings show without a wizard who felt the things that wizards in Lord of the Rings make you feel would just feel like it's missing the point. He added, anything that can help us get there and evoke those feelings we were drawn to. Despite what some folks might think, we're really not about a game. We're really not about a puzzle, but we also don't want to take for granted where characters will end up. We want to see them grow and change along the way, and we hope that in the end, you look back and it feels inevitable. But in the moment, I'm trying to say it, but not say it. And then they say that he laughs there. So that is how Patrick McKay explains why they've included a wizard into the show, making a ridiculous comparison analogy to a Thanksgiving meal. It's utterly ridiculous because he's comparing the Lord of the Rings, which I would argue you could say is the Thanksgiving meal, to maybe an Easter meal, where it is a completely different meal. You are not having the turkey. You're not having the cranberry sauce. You're not having the stuffing. You have a very different meat, usually a ham. And then you have all different kinds of different sides. You wouldn't have the cranberry sauce. You wouldn't have the stuffing, because the second and the third age are very, very different. And Tolkien makes this abundantly clear, especially in his letters, and how he actually describes the second age in the Silmarillion. Obviously was published posthumously by his son, Christopher Tolkien, but that he wrote or had begun writing before The Lord of the Rings. It's very dark, grim, lots of suffering, lots of agony, lots of pain, and Tolkien makes that abundantly clear. So this is a terrible analogy because they are two different ages that have two very different themes happening within them. So I think it's a poor excuse, poor justification, and they just wanted to have a wizard so they could get member berries, nostalgia, and try and get people into the show and get more people subscribing, I guess, to whatever the Amazon subscription is, to Prime Video, whatever you get with whatever their subscription service is, because you get the free shipping or whatever it is now as well. But we did also get some more information here as far as what to expect of the Stranger's Journey in season 2. He will be traveling to Rune with Nori. McKay explained their vision of Rune. So we're really excited about that. We've never seen deserts on screen or in Middle Earth, and we're really excited to go there. We think deserts are beautiful and awesome, and we're doing our own Tolkienian Lawrence of Arabia. That's a very high comparison. I doubt that they will be able to meet those expectations that they are setting for themselves there, especially given what we saw in the first season. One of the things that's been fun about that is Rune is really a blank canvas. There are little hints. There's talk about magic cults and talk about the stars being strange, and rumors of wizards having adventures in Rune that may or may not have gone well. We're drawing on all those seeds to hopefully continue to tell a story that feels worthy of the other canonical stories in here. Again, remember, these are the people that are always saying we're going back to the book, back to the book, back to the book. But then they say things like this where they actually admit the more fun they have is actually doing things that have nothing to do with the book. It's really a blank canvas, and that's what's really been fun. It's because we get to tell our own story, because that's all they're really doing. They're just trying to tell their own story and putting a skin suit of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien over top of it. He went on and said this: it's been really fun trying to imagine that world, what the people in it are like, what the architecture is like, what kind of a desert. We just spent 5 weeks shooting in a far-flung overseas location for spectacular vistas, and it's really cool. His fellow showrunner, J.D. Payne, also shared this. For us, what always keeps it grounded is going through the experience the characters themselves are having, and the wizard doesn't know who he is. I don't know why he says they are. He's like a singular person. It's weird why he's using weird pronouns here. Very, very red flag here, using a plural pronoun for a singular person who's clearly a man. If he did, then it might be a little cheap, because it would be like we're just withholding just for the purpose of withholding, but the wizard is on a journey of self-discovery. He learned a couple of key things about himself. See, he's back to using himself there. Very weird. At the end of season 1, he learned that he's an Istari and learned that he has a destiny in the East to go and seek out. So now we are on that journey of self-discovery with him, where he's learning how to control his powers. We saw him gain some footholds in season 1, but we also saw him mess it up a lot in season 1, and that will continue. For us, it's really delicious to watch a character who could eventually become one of great power, not yet be there, and then have to figure out what mistakes they're going to make along the way. Again, they're almost like changing the stories of the wizards as well, indicating they don't know who they are. They have like amnesia. They are not aware of their powers. They're not really certain on what they can and can't do. That is not what Tolkien wrote. It's very clear here that these people knew who they were. They were identified very early on, and they had very good wherewithal of kind of what their abilities were. I think that kind of faded over time. Obviously, they have the rules that were set out for them, and maybe they kind of like lost their memory of that. Like any kind of mortal being, We don't remember everything that happened to us, especially in the distant past. Many of us cannot remember what happened maybe below the age of 4. And if we do have memories of that, it's maybe like one big spark or maybe one or two. We don't have like lucid memories of almost an entire day. And I don't have memories of exactly what happened yesterday. Obviously, I have like big things that stand out, but I don't remember everything that stood out. I couldn't basically write in a journal everything that actively happened yesterday. So I think that is kind of more on the lines of what Tolkien had in mind, rather than this guy just completely doesn't understand anything of who he is, doesn't know what he is, why he's there, or what his purpose is at all. I think that's obviously something they completely made up, and they're still making things up as they go, contrary to Tolkien's legendarium. And it's just another sign, another red flag that they are not actually improving on the show, and it is likely going to be just as bad, if not worse, than the first season. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, but to always speak the truth.